Hey everybody, welcome to Pokemon Talk with CALLOUS. This is a perfect time for this particular discussion because not only is SPL about to start, and we all are pretty pumped about that, but also it ties in directly with two conversations, two Pokemon Talks that we had fairly recently. We had discussed the community's approach to banning and random things that people get banned for, such as the linear curve situation. And we also did a talk even more recently about managerial strategy, the SPL auction, blah, blah, blah. The auction itself actually went pretty smooth, but what do you know? We've got some drama. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. It's going to be the Ojama situation that most of you know about, but I'm going to real quick read off what happened. I just want to give everybody full disclosure that even though I had absolutely nothing to do with Ojama's behavior, nor with the punishment that came with it, I did in fact end up incidentally benefiting from this situation. Anyhow, we've got Jabba here, who has been in more SPLs than Marco and I combined, and we've got Marco P, who is on the other side of this. He's on the other team involved in the situation. So I'm just going to read off exactly what happened, word for word, from the Smogon thread, and then we'll get opening takes from our gentleman here. So for clarity, and there's going to be a link in the description for this, this is what happened. This came down on Monday. Quote, Ojama told multiple managers to not draft him. Two confirmed and others have claimed the same was done to them, with the intention of lowering his price to help the teams that he liked. This alone is a major offense that had a noticeable effect on the draft, and ignoring it after everyone put so much emphasis on addressing price fixing would be a slap in the face to the tour community. As a player, you can have your preferences, but when you are outright telling multiple teams to not bid for you, you are having a direct effect on your value during the draft. This is, quite literally, price fixing. The rules have always been clear. If you're interested in playing, be aware that any team may buy you and you are expected to play for any one of them. If you cannot commit to that, do not sign up. The price fixing is a significant part of the problem, but it doesn't end there. Ojama was picked up by a team that he explicitly told to not bid on him, that's the Bigs. Minutes after picking him up, Bigs drafters were reporting to hosts that Ojama was refusing to work with them, putting the whole auction on hold for 40 plus minutes to let us investigate canceling reports, evaluate any evidence that we got, and decide whether we banned someone or not was simply not an option, so they were told to wait until the auction ended. Biggs could have risked it all and forced Ojama to stick to them, but for that to work, they would need Ojama to care enough to perform, or they would have wasted a 23k slot. They were put in a rough spot, and their way out was making a deal with the Tyrants. That's Marco's team. The deal and subsequent trade were legal, and the uneven trade argument is so subjective that it is almost never worth touching. At the time, there was no evidence against Ojama other than complaints from Bigs members, and there was nothing hosts could do. It was clear something sketchy had happened, but there's no evidence, and you can't force the involved teams to help you. There's nothing to do. Everyone can see the elephant in the room, but you cannot expect hosts or TDs to ban without evidence. Luckily for everyone, the involved parties decided to post evidence that could be used to back up the complaints, and that's why we're here. Ojama refused to join the Bigs Discord, showed no willingness to work with them, and stopped a trade that wasn't to his liking. When told we can build around you, he replied with your team is awful. I'd rather play for PDC or Void, for PDC than for Void and Stone any day. The trade he refused was with the Scooters, who he also told not to draft them. Some people want to paint this as a good thing when all it shows is that he was telling two teams to F off. Ojama made it impossible for the Bigs to do anything but get rid of him, and due to his price tag, this was a major problem. This is blatant sabotage of a team, and sadly, he succeeded. So, finally, the last part of this post, the ruling. Ojama will be tour banned for 3 months and banned from team tournaments for a year for price fixing and sabotage. His price tag and value as a player has turned into a major headache for the TDs, hosts, and both teams involved, and there's no perfect solution to the problems he caused, but he's a player just like everyone else, and he'll be punished the same way a 3K pickup would. So, the trade will be reversed. Tyrants will keep their 4 players. Bigs will be given a full refund, and they can use the money before week 1 as they please. keeping a banned player around, postponing the punishment, and redoing the draft are all impossible. This is not a good outcome for these two teams, but at this moment, there's no other option. That took a little longer than I wanted it to take, but now we're all on the same page. Immediate reaction to that, Marco.
Honestly, I thought it was a little silly, especially when you look at like the actual evidence shown. Like, apparently the TDs and like Hikari and Quiet were like completely fine with the trade, and even following like Dice's thread. I don't know if you guys know it, that it was the elephant in the SPL room where he kind of just like highlighted everything that, like you just said in Hikari's post, that it was like a just ridiculous trade. Like, yeah, he was trying to price fix himself, and like he refused to play for a few managers. But he also mentioned the competitive aspect of it, or rather like the uncompetitive aspect of it. And like Hikari mentioned, that's just like a silly thing. I think this was more just like the tournament community kind of like just freaking out at the Tyrants because they like thought we'd be literally like our team would be too good if we got Ojama. That's how a lot of people perceived it. And like, I don't know, I think that's kind of silly because I think if this trade happened and ZF plus a little bit of money and Ojama was on the scooters, there wouldn't be nowhere near as much of an uproar. But because like it's my team, which like was already like we were runners up last year, there was obviously like a lot of drama surrounding us and like some of our players. Like people are gonna react more to that than they do to anything else. Yeah. So like I was saying, it was actually Ojama's like own pride that got him banned. Like his response, because his response in the Dice's thread actually like made Sabella respond, and Sabella's log. I don't know if you want to like. I'll just real quick. It was it was basically just saying. Ojama saying like I'd rather play for PDC than Void and Stone Cold. That was the log that kind of put the nail in the coffin and really just fucked Ojama. But I don't know. I feel like this was just a weird situation because the bigs kind of got the worst end of the deal here, especially because they also lost their other 20K plus player in TDK. And like, I don't know, on paper, if you have two guys that are like around 25K, like definitely two of the top 10 players you could argue in this format, and then you lose them both for like a lot of like solid 3K players and like cheaper players. But there's definitely like less of you feel less confident, and there's like the other team is less nervous if they don't see like Ojama going against them or TDK going against them. So, yeah.
So there's two separate issues in play here. There's the price fixing, and there's the refusal to work with certain managers. So I'll throw it over to Jabba. We'll tackle one issue at a time. Jabba, in a competitive tournament such as an SPL, how big of a deal is price fixing?
I mean, I think it's a pretty big deal. I think I honestly think so I don't have all the evidence in front of me. I don't know the kind of stuff he was saying. What he said to managers before the tournament is probably the most important thing. If he was literally going around and saying, "Don't buy me, I won't play for you," to everyone except who he wanted to play for so that he would cost less, I think he should probably, on top of being banned from team tournaments, should also get a personal 1-year ban. I don't know why they cut that to 3 months. That seems a little low. Maybe it wasn't as harsh as what I said. Maybe it was a little more hinting. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. But I think it's a pretty serious issue, and should be punished. If not more than what they did, at the very least what they did, I think it was a fair punishment. So I think it's a pretty big deal.
Do you agree, Marco? Do you think price fixing is a serious problem at the SPL level, or do you think this is like an isolated incident that is not something that generally affects the draft?
Oh, no, it's definitely not an isolated incident, but there's also, like, I don't know. I feel like the whole reason this thing happened was because of the bigs' incompetence. Like, obviously, like, no offense to, like, Sabella or Nails. Like, they were inexperienced drafters, and, like, they, for good reason, thought Ojama would cost more than 23K. Because, like, I was screaming at Ray and telling him to upbid Ojama from 23. But yeah, they got him cheap, and then they were like, okay, maybe we can work with this, but they kind of got fucked over there because I don't know. They should have listened. Like, there's a reason my team didn't bid on BKC. Like, there's a reason. Like, people don't bid on people, and they gotta be aware of that. Like, at the end of the day, it's a competitive tournament, but there's a very, very, very team environment might be the most important thing in these tournaments. And if you really, really don't want to team with someone, or if someone really, really doesn't want to team with you, you should keep that in mind when bidding on them.
So I can see both sides of that coin. Like, on one hand, I do not at all condone or agree with Ojama's behavior. I think that in Pokemon and in real life, the adult thing to do, not to say that all Pokemon players are adults, but Ojama is an adult, and all the 25
He
plus...
hasn't been acting like one lately.
Sure, but all the Mega Buy guys, all the 25K plus guys, they're all adults. And the adult thing to do is, whether you like someone or not, there's always going to be someone. That coworker you don't like, the in-law you don't like, whatever, there's always going to be somebody.
CALLOUS.
Absolutely. But when you get onto a team with someone, or you're a coworker with someone, you just put that shit to the side, you smile, and you fucking work with them. You be cordial, you support each other, you don't have to like each other, you don't have to be friends, but you just be a fucking adult and you deal with it. And that's what Ojama should have done. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. However, Marco brings up a good point. On the other side of the coin, is there some amount of blame that you have to put on Big's management or on any given manager who goes, well, wait a minute, this dude doesn't want to work with you, so even if he sucks it up and does work with you, is he going to give it 100%? Is he actually worth this price tag? Is this the best thing for the team environment? Even if Ojama hadn't made a big stink and did, in fact, play for the Bigs, if he's going to half-ass it or if he's going to be a dick the whole time, do you really want that player? So I'll throw it back to Jabba. How much of this do you put on Ojama versus how much of this do you put on what the fuck are you doing managers?
You definitely have to put some on the managers, and mostly because with an issue like this, you should take it to them before the draft. I don't understand the level of incompetence, like I think Marco put it, where you go, well, let's try this. Let's see how it works. We directly know this guy isn't going to want to play for us, but maybe if we get him low anyway, we can our charm and our wit. He'll turn around and go, you know what, you guys are good people. I'm going to give it my all. Just take it to the hosts. Let them do with it what they will. It's almost like a 50-50 split. I don't know the exact odds that I would put on it, but they created this situation by not taking it to the host before the draft and then just taking the risk. And then this is the shit show it resulted in.
Yep.
Same question to you, Marco. How much of this blame do you put on Ojama himself and how much do you put on the managers?
I mean, it is really, really, I don't know. You really, really, what Jabba said, there's always the chance that you can join the team chat and get along with someone. But then again, this is Ojama we're talking about. He's known to be a very abrasive person and a very bold personality. If he's on a team, he usually gets up all his French goons. It's his team. And I don't know, the Bigs were kind of just, they didn't want him on their team and he didn't want to be on their team. So that was just, I don't know. I just think the Bigs managers were just very, 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 very obtuse in thinking that Ojama would play for them. I don't know. That was just, in my eyes at least, they're all to blame. And I think logically they're all to blame too. Obviously this situation wouldn't have happened if Ojama was more agreeable, but I mean that's life. Some people you're just not going to get along with, and that's how he is. But this could have been avoided if the Bigs managers use their heads.
I'm going to expand it even further. I mean, the Bigs just happened to be the team that it landed on, but it's not as if it were just the Bigs and one other team bidding on Ojama. There were several teams, and I think the responsibility falls on all the managers, not just the Bigs. I think what should have happened, because, I mean, really, the managers have the responsibility more than anybody else on the tour other than the TDs to know the rules and follow the rules more than anybody. That falls on the managers. And what should have happened is every single manager where Ojama told them before the draft, I refuse to play for you, it's that manager's responsibility to bring that to the attention prior to the auction to the TD team. So this whole thing, and it's not just bigs, if the 4 teams, 5 teams, however many teams Ojama said, I'm not going to play for you to, if all of those teams fulfilled their obligations, went to the TDs and said this is what's going on, this maybe could have been prevented before it even happened. I think the bigs are just the guys who got stuck with him, but I think this is one of those situations where you could have prevented it before it happened.
Like you're right, but at the same time, like, you could argue the bigs were like dumb enough to get stuck with him. Like, there's a like he I believe he also told he told Kingler, like, I'd rather not play with you, which is fine. Like, you can tell someone, like, I'd rather not play with you because, like, personal reasons or whatever. But it's also the fact, I think the bigger problem is that it's Ojama and he has a history of, like, doing stuff like this and being like a callous teammate. And, like, yeah, if it wasn't Ojama, this would have gone down a lot differently. Like, if this was your random, just like run-of-the-mill player, there would have been no drama over this. He would have gotten banned in a heartbeat. But because this is Ojama, like, I don't know, there was this whole debacle. But this whole debacle would have never happened if the Bigs managers weren't just idiots.
So I want to state on record, and yeah, this is me kind of getting the I told you so in there, but this is not revisionist history. I said 2 weeks ago in our Pokemon talk, prior to the SPL auction, and I used Ojama specifically as an example. I said on record, I would not take Ojama for any price. I wouldn't take Ojama on my team for 10K, even though as a player he's worth more than that. And this is the exact reason. This is a glaring I told you so, because he's a dick and because he's cancerous to the team environment, and this kind of crap happens. Like, so how much of this, here's kind of one of the enforcement problems. Like, you can't ban someone for saying, you know what, Kingler, I don't really like you, I'd prefer not to be on your team. That's not bannable. Whereas saying to Kingler, I will not play with you. If you draft me, I am absolutely not going to play. That is bannable. So, like, what's the solution to this problem if a player says to 6 of the managers, I don't want to play with you? Technically, they're not actually breaking any rules, and obviously only one team is going to end up with the guy, so he can only outright refuse to play for one team. So, like, how do you enforce it? Like, where's the line between I don't want to play with you, I won't play with you? How do you get ahead of this when it just becomes one big word game?
Yeah, that's tough. And like I was saying, I haven't seen what he said to the managers. We could be looking at a situation like that here, or, you know, it could happen in the future. And the crime, quote unquote, isn't really committed until after the draft. Like, say here he went to these managers and he went, you know, I prefer not to play with you. Obviously, knowing Ojama, that's 100% not what he said, but there could be a world where he says that. And then afterwards, they go, well, he doesn't want to play with us, but, you know, he didn't say he won it. So he's still worth that, even though maybe he'll just play his game and not help at all. And then after they draft him, he does what he did here, and he refuses to join the Discord. He's like, you guys fucking suck. I'm not playing for you guys. Get away from me. That's a problem, and I don't know if there's a real solution to that other than to, you know, maybe you almost got to make it an example out of someone in that situation just to discourage it. But I don't even think you can do that. I think it's a problem that it's too hard to fix.
What about you, Marco? Do you see a solution here? Or do you think it's just a word game of I don't want to play with you versus I won't play with you versus please trade me? I mean, is there a way to really define what a player can or can't say? I mean, are we going down that kind of slippery slope? I mean,
no,
how do you enforce this?
I think it's kind of a combination of both. Like what Jabba said about making an example out of Ojama is definitely kind of what they did here, because this is like situations like this have happened in the past, but there's also, I think the biggest thing in a team tour is motivation. And if someone tells you they don't want to play for you, like, they're probably not going to have motivate, or they're probably not going to be that motivated if you buy them, or like if you fail up an upbid on them. So like, I really would never want someone on my team who doesn't want to play for me. Like, no matter how good they are, you can't have that. Like, when everyone's giving 100%, and then one guy is just like giving 10%, that makes everyone else like feel like shit and just being like, why am I like wasting all my time on this? Like, if this guy's just logging on once a week and getting his ass kicked, like, that just makes you feel like shit. So I don't know. I don't think this will happen that much, because I think in the future people will see what happened to Ojama and realize that like can very, very easily happen to them. But I also don't think there's going to be a lot of players who are like openly against getting bought by many teams, or as open as he was about it. And the ones that are, I'm sure won't get bought by these teams, because this was just like a really shocking failed upbid, because because of what Ojama did, and because of how he talked to the guys and told them to not, how he told a lot of managers to not bid on him. And that's the reason his price was so low.
Yeah, I mean, like from Stone and Void's point of view, I think they handled it perfectly. I mean, whether or not they should have bid is a different argument, but like once they got him for 23K, they absolutely did the right thing and just said, okay, we're teammates now. That was a great price for a great player. Dude, we're going to build around you. Let's do this. Like, the second you get him, you fucking shake his hand and go, let's go, boys. We got this. And that's exactly what they should have done. It falls at that point on Ojama. Like, Stone and Void are willing to, all right, dude, this wasn't our plan, but here you are. Let's do it. Whereas Ojama is not on board, is not having it. Ojama goes, nah, I don't give a shit that you just got a good value on me. I don't give a shit that you guys have decent retains. I'm not fucking playing with you. So, I mean, to me, that falls squarely on Ojama. Whether or not they should have bid or not is up for debate. But what happened after the fact, I'm completely on the side of the Bigs management. I think they handled it appropriately. I think they tried to welcome him and say they'd build around him. I think they then offered a fair trade to try to get rid of him. And, I mean, Ojama just wasn't letting either of those things happen. So, like, the Bigs really didn't do anything wrong other than arguably bidding on him in the first place, and then kind of got shafted. But we'll talk about that part too. So we'll talk about what should have happened and what the resolution should have been after this situation already occurred. So we'll start in the middle. Jabba, should the trade that got blocked have been allowed?
In what, assuming that he doesn't get banned, because isn't that the issue at the end of the day? It doesn't really matter.
That's what I think. That's my answer, but you tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to ban him, I don't think it's relevant whether you're pushing the trade through. But in a world where you don't ban him, do you let that trade happen? I don't know. Is there a safeguard kind of in like fantasy football? I forget the rules 100%. Is there a safeguard to trades where managers can veto, or is this 100% on the hosts?
The commissioner, or like, I think
it's just 100% on their shoulders. I don't like that. I've never liked that, because they're wavered so much by the people in their ears too, and their decisions always come out biased. I would like a manager safeguard for trades personally, where if 2/3 vote it down.
But a manager vote will always be biased. That's the thing.
But I agree with Jabba's.
I think if it's fair, most managers aren't going to care. If it's an even trade, and either improves both teams or makes both teams worse, to the other managers, they're going to let it through.
I agree.
Maybe 2/3, including the commissioners, and then you have three of them there. So then it makes it almost impossible to get 2/3 unless it's so lopsided.
But I agree with Jabba's original statement, though, that the trade is actually irrelevant because Ojama had already done enough at that point to where he should just be banned either way, regardless of whether it was a completely fair trade or not. Even if it had just been an Ojama for Aurora or an Ojama for a BKC straight up, something that nobody would object to, I think it's irrelevant, because I think at that point he had already done enough to get hit with the ban hammer. So I don't actually think whether or not the trade was fair really matters in this context. I mean, the Bigs did try to offer him a way out, and I commend them for that. But I think the damage had already been done. I think Ojama already had stated he would only play for a handful of teams. I think he had already messed with his price. So, like, if you're trading a 23 Ojama somewhere, it's still a 23K Ojama, and he should be more than that. The issue is he messed with his price prior to this point by taking certain actions. And it's hard to correct. Like, see, like, the flip side of Marco's argument, right? If a player tells 7 managers, I'd rather not play for you, doesn't explicitly say that he won't, just says that he doesn't want to, and all 10 managers are on the same page, they all agree, I don't want an unmotivated player, I don't want someone who doesn't want to play for me. If all 10 managers subscribe to that philosophy, and therefore only 1 or 2 or 3, whatever amount of teams Ojama would play for, ultimately end up bidding on him, even though you haven't technically broken any rules, doesn't that in effect have the same outcome as price fixing? Like, isn't that more or less the same thing, even if you haven't refused to play for a team?
I mean, it kind of depends. Like, I guess in a vacuum, yeah, that kind of is a little bit of a price fix. But, like, with that said, isn't anything that happens, like, before the auction, or, like, anything that a player does, like, outside of the Pokemon game, like, on Discord or whatever, kind of like a price fix by that definition? Like, if they start acting like an idiot and just, like, talking so much shit in, like, public Discords or whatever, like, is that just not a way of fixing their price? Like, how are we supposed to...
Joel Antonio Brown.
Yeah, how are we supposed to, like... There's no concrete... We can't be concrete on this, and I think that's the problem. We just have to rely on managers to pick the best teams for themselves, and I think oftentimes that means picking 15 or however many people that will always, like, give their best for your team. And yeah, that's picking someone who that means not picking up people that don't want to play for you.
Jabba, do you agree with the rule that the expectation is any player can get drafted by any team, and once that happens, you deal with it, whether you want to play with them or not? Do you think that that's something that should be in the rules as it is now?
Yeah, just because of the way SPL works, I'm sure there's a scenario we could workshop, we could brainstorm ways to improve the format, because I mean, if you notice, the format hasn't really changed in 7 or 8 years. It could probably use a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of updating to kind of work around these sort of situations. But if you're not going to change it at all, then I think you almost have to have that rule, that kind of blanket rule, even if it isn't really going to be effective in most situations.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with allowing any kind of player X refusing to go to Team Y is where does it end? I mean, it's a slippery slope. That's kind of the issue. Like, if you're going to do that, I mean, why do we even have an auction if we're going to go all the way down that? Why don't we just pick the teams beforehand? Why don't we just let people sign up with their squad of 10 that they decide? I mean, at some point, there has to be a you get what you get element. The problem is the enforcement of it. Like, the rule is wonderful on principle, but the actual enforcement is the issue. Do you guys agree? I know Jabba said that he does. Marco, do you agree with the banning of Ojama? Is what he did a bannable offense as far as you're concerned?
I think, yeah, like, he should have been banned, but I think just from this SPL, I think the year-long team tournament ban, which actually makes him miss 2 SPLs, and the 3-month ban doesn't really matter. He'll still be able to play. Like,
he misses World Cup too, right?
Yeah, but I think it's more the 1-year tournament ban was a little ridiculous in my eyes. Like, an SPL ban would have been fine. There was obviously, like, I don't know, there wasn't, like, all the precedents on this didn't really get punished that hard. Or if you look at all the precedents, like, none of the guys got punished that badly, like, and they're just fucking Ojama really hard here, which I don't like at all. And especially when you look at what Lax did before the tour, I don't know if you know, but there were logs of him saying that he intends on potentially buying a ghosting slot for Lavos for the Alpha Ruiners, and this only got him an SPL ban. And it's like yeah, it's comparing apples to oranges, but like, how is that really any worse than like what Ojama did, like to merit a year-long team tournament ban?
So that's kind of the. I'm glad you said that, because that's kind of the slope that I wanted to go down. So like, this opens up a whole new can of worms of the inconsistency and inequality of Smogon penalties. So I'm very outspoken about shitting on the TD team and shitting on the way Smogon is run, but I am going to applaud them in this instance, where I think they handled this situation correctly. I think that, as is stated in Hikari's post, the option sucked. You couldn't keep a banned player on a team. You couldn't redo the auction. And I agree that they picked the best out of bad solutions. All the solutions sucked, but I think they picked the right one. So I applaud the TD team for that.
If you could put the...
Oh,
you know what else?
hey, Marco's roommate or somebody's
Dad.
here.
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah.
Hey, Marco's dad. All right. I agree with how the TD team handled this. What I don't necessarily agree with is how penalty A stacks up with penalty B. So, like, I had Lanier Curve message me complaining about this, and Lanier said, wait a minute, what the fuck? So what I did, forfeiting to Fakes because I thought that he deserved to win, gets me the exact same penalty that Ojama gets for price
I didn't even
fixing.
think of it that way.
Right, that Lanier messaged.
That's absolutely absurd.
Lanier messaged me and said, "This is fucking bullshit." He's like, "So I forfeited to Fakes because I thought that I got lucky and he deserved to win, but like this guy blatantly tells teams to go f themselves," which is what it says in the post. That's not me saying that. That's Hikari saying that Ojama told two teams to go fuck off. So Ojama does that and he price fixes himself, but it's the exact same penalty as what Lanier did. That's my issue. I mean,
well, obviously, taking a step back, that is a very clear situation of an over punishment on Lanier instead of an under punishment here.
Oh yeah, they were just making an example out of Lanier. That was bullshit.
Well, here they're making an example out of Ojama.
Oh yeah, 100%. Dude, that's the best thing you can do in Pokemon. Like, because you really can't stop anyone from cheating, but you can always like instill fear in them and like be like make them like or at least try to second guess themselves when they're about to cheat.
Yeah, a lot of cheating you can't really fix except through just straight up deterring.
Yeah.
Just taking situations that the rare, it's probably less than 10% of these situations actually come to light. So if you grab those and you publicly flog this person, then maybe those 90%ers will look at it and go, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So Jabba, was this punishment to make an example out of Ojama?
Maybe. Like I said earlier, it does seem a little on the light side with the 3 months, just the normal tour ban. Like Marco said, the year-long team tournament ban does look like it'll clip 2 SPL. So that one could theoretically be interpreted as, making an example of them because it's, you're going to miss 2 SPLs and a World Cup. And that's, that's a pretty huge punishment, missing 2 SPLs, I think.
And what would your response be to someone like Lanier, who, like I said, messaged me and said, this is complete horseshit. How is what I did equal punishment to what Ojama did? How do you respond to that?
I would tell him you got screwed. You were a public flogging. You were a tarred feathering. They don't want people to do that, and the only way to stop it is to take an instance of it and go look what happens if you do this. I don't think what he did is nearly as bad as what Ojama did, but if they don't want that to ever happen again, then that's the best way to do it, is to institute a ban that lengthy.
Do you agree with that, Marco?
Oh, 100%, man. Yeah.
So what would you say back to Lanier? Would you just tell him he got screwed?
Yeah, he got fucking hosed, man. Like, that's life. That sucks, but yeah, I don't know. That was the stupidest ban I've seen in a while.
The Lanier ban?
Yeah, that was bad.
So So now we'll do the aftermath. So the Ojama ban has now happened. So I'm on the bigs, and I actually got purchased with some of Ojama's refund money. I was not.
Woo! Congratulations.
Yeah, I was not
SPL Callous.
Well, I was not in the original auction. Nobody wanted me. I even got a message from Stone Cold saying, in the SPL reject draft, we select. But but yeah, I mean, we'll do it from both sides. So I mean, Marco, like, you tell me on your team. I mean, you're on the Tyrants. You were going to trade for Ojama. There were specific players that were on your team that you guys said, hey, we don't really want you. We're fucking getting rid of you. The trade gets voided, blocked. So now the players are on your team again. Oh, we didn't really mean that. Welcome to the team. Like, I mean, how does it affect your team environment? What's changed on your end now that you thought that you were getting Ojama and you thought you were getting rid of some people? As it turns out, that isn't happening.
Oh yeah, initially we were like furious. Like we were all just like this is just it was bullshit. We were so mad. But then we realized we could just get TDK with the same people, and we forgot about Ojama immediately. Because as great as Ojama is, TDK is just as fantastic, and yeah, we got him for the same thing pretty much. No loss from us, except for not having Ojama, but getting it was a 1-for-1. It was a trade-off. That's what we saw it as. So I don't know. We weren't that mad. Like, obviously, we would have loved to have Ojama, but we love to have TDK. I think I really feel bad for you guys. Like, you guys really, really got hosed here. Like, obviously, I'm very happy that you got bought, because I think you deserve to get bought, like, straight out the bat. But
appreciate it.
I don't know. I think you guys really got the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, no, nobody needs to be sensitive with me. I mean, I'll openly say it. I don't think anyone would dispute. I mean, if a bunch of 3K players, let's say we're all somewhere in the vicinity of 6 out of 10 as a player, whereas Ojama's, a 10, we'll call it.
Yeah.
In sports, in Pokemon, whatever, 4 6s don't equal a 10. I know that in literal math it looks that way, but it just doesn't work that way in sports. Like the one top end guy is just better than
he brings more to the team. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just how it is. I mean it's the same like in the NBA when they make a trade when you trade the one superstar guy for the 3 other guys in the draft picks. The team that gets the superstar wins every time.
Yep.
That's just how it works. I mean, I don't take offense by that. I'm not as good as Ojama. Is anyone going to dispute that? I mean,
I do.
I appreciate it.
I think you're fantastic, Cal.
Dude, Ojama. I thought Ojama
bud.
was like without ABR. Like you could argue Ojama was like the best player in this tournament. Period. Like.
Yeah, I mean
now he's just not in it.
No, pure talent wise. I mean, no team benefits from losing a player of that talent level. But I mean, I'll flip it. Is there, from the Bigs' point of view, I'm not saying it's a net positive. Let's keep it real here. But is there any upside to the way that it played out? Is there any value to strengthen numbers, to more testers, to a deeper bench, to maybe you have somebody who has a different point of view? I mean, is there any upside for the Bigs, or is this just a complete throwaway season?
You can go.
Yeah, you go first, man. It's all good.
Okay. I was just going to say, I think in SPL more than the sports you referenced, I think the 6s have a larger impact than 6s in those types of games or sports or whatever, and I don't think the 10 has as much of an impact. I've played with teams that are spread wide, and then teams that are have that upward triangle to the 10, and then they kind of dip off. And I think we discussed this in the management one we did a couple weeks back. I think that a good solid, team of above average players can be worth as much as one that, has 1 or 2 superstars and then average. So I don't think it's a complete loss. Obviously, losing Ojama is huge, but if their pickups have add any value whatsoever to the team, then it can kind of bring up their middle of the field. I I don't know if that's the case here. Obviously, they were digging the bottom of the barrel. They picked up a player named CALLOUS. I've never heard of him. Sounds like trash. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't think it kills the season for them, but obviously we'll see how that works out.
Is there any validity to the bigs being like, well, we really have nothing to lose now, so we have no expectations. Everyone thinks we got shafted. Everyone's ruling us out. So now basically, if we make playoffs, it's a win, and we have nothing to lose. Like, is there any benefit to saying we do have things to gain if we made playoffs or better? That's going to look real good. Whereas if we don't make playoffs, if we finish in 8th or whatever, that's what everybody expects anyway. So, I mean, is there any benefit to nothing to lose, everything to gain?
Oh, yeah. First off, it would be fucking hysterical if you guys just start blowing people out right off the bat. But, yeah, they're definitely... I don't know. I think you can approach this with the same mentality because at the end of the day, like, it's Pokemon. Like, there have probably been worse teams than this in SPL history that have done well. Like, I'm not
100%, yeah.
100%, right? Yeah, there's got to be. Like, you guys have.
I really don't think our team's that bad. I mean, I'm not.
Oh yeah, like
I'm not trying to pretend it wouldn't be better with Ojama, but I really don't think the team that we have is that bad.
Like, yeah,
they would have had
Lack's a big name. Lack's a big name, but like, I don't know. You guys have a lot of solid players. Like, a lot of guys who can definitely, like, you can put them down as like 5-4, 6-3 records. But like, losing like those two big names is always going to suck because, like, I know from experience, and I'm sure like both you guys do as well. If like when you're playing a big name, like you're thinking about it. Like, you're like, oh yeah, like what am I going to do versus like whatever guy this week?
I was the big name. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so I'm sure people have told you, Jabba, like people stressed out about like preparing for you in the past, and that's honestly the mental factor that it's like one of the biggest parts of competing in Pokemon. Just like going into your game confident, and you go into your game like 9 times out of 10 a lot less confident if you're playing someone who's like as highly touted as Ojama. But I don't know. Overall, I think the bigs, like, yeah, whatever. They might have less talent overall, but they have 20, like, however many people they have, and it's Pokemon. They can scratch together a few wins. I'm confident.
I was actually just gonna say that we it's even more. It's like 24 people or some absurd number.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that's, I mean, as much like we're never not gonna have a sub. That's for damn sure. But I can also.
That's true.
Well, I don't want to name names because I don't know if this is public information or not. But like, in addition to the 24, we have 3 different people who aren't on the team, who aren't in SPL, also helping us. So I mean, our Discord is loaded. But the flip side of that argument is there such thing as too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Is it going to be detrimental to the point where it's like, what the fuck? When do I get to play? Or, hey, we're 7 weeks in. I know that I'm never playing. I'm really not motivated for this anymore. Like, is there a point? Like, I mean, Marco, you yourself did this. In the last POCL, you guys had money as managers at mids and just didn't fucking use it. You just didn't want anybody. The money had no other value, and you just chose to not pick anybody up. Like, is there a point where it's like, there's just too many fucking guys in here?
Oh no, 100%, without a doubt.
I've been on those teams. It gets messy. It's too much.
Like, I don't want to be like in my ADV channel and then see like some fucking guy I've never spoken to who's helping out our LC players say like, okay, maybe you should use fucking Dugtrio versus this guy. Like, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck, like dude, like I already got enough on my mind. I don't need to like get mad at you.
Do you guys think that the bigs should not have used the entirety of their money? Do you think maybe they should have just picked up like 3 guys and said, you know what, that's enough for now?
Yeah, that confused me a lot. I mean, theoretically, the one perk of that entire situation was that, they lost Ojama, but sometimes there are some big names that are available at mids. So now they have kind of the credits where, let's see if this can get us, to 2-2 to mids. And then we can use this to really buy, one of the bigger names that signs up, because we're going to be kind of controlling mids. It's going to work around us.
Hold on. They fixed mids. They fixed mids.
Wait, they fixed mids? Mids?
You can only sign up at mids if you signed up at the very beginning of the season.
I was just going to say, the current mid rules, no new players can come in.
Okay. That makes sense. When did they fix that?
I think last SPL.
Okay, that was a good change. Okay,
Yeah.
then just use them now, I guess. or you know what? Here's the one thing. Going into mids, then still having those credits,
Yeah,
you're going to know where your needs are.
Exactly.
And right now, they don't know where those are. You know, maybe someone has a terrible season, goes into mid 0-4, and you're like, ah, shit. We thought he was going to be a staple, but now we got to replace him. But you know, they already blew all their credits.
There's absolutely an argument to have money as a reactionary thing, as opposed to in advance being like, hey, you know what? We're just gonna pad this tier, this tier, this tier. We don't actually know right now what tier is gonna need padding. And I mean, there's some unknown factors on our team too. Like you look at like our GSC, our two guys are either going to be Descending, who's never played SPL before, you have no fucking clue what you're going to get, or IFM, who at one point was really good and was one of the better GSCs, but I mean, he's been gone for years. Who knows what you're going to get out of him? So like there's an argument to be made, for example, that you don't know how our GSC spot is going to perform. Maybe money should have been allocated to that. Like somebody like a Mele, for example, did not get picked up in either one, in the main auction.
Yeah, that was a little surprising.
Oh, there's a couple big names. Luxkill didn't get picked up. Exiline didn't get picked up. There's some good players, some talented guys. Exiline had a positive record. What was it, 2 SPLs ago? Went 6-3. I mean, I think he didn't get picked because people think that he's toxic, but I mean, the point is that there was talent in the pool. So can you... I mean, I'm super grateful that the bigs bought me. Don't you misunderstand that. But is there an argument to be made that the bigs should not have used as much money as they did after this situation occurred?
I think Stone Cold and whoever else was doing the bidding.
Void,
yeah, we're definitely a little self-aware of their situation, and we're kind of just laughing it off in a way. That's what I saw. I don't know if they just wanted to be perceived that way, but like, that's how it was perceived. Like, they were literally just going full meme, like, full, like, ha, ha, fuck you. We can buy 25 players, so we're going to buy 25 players. And honestly, with what they had, they could have done... I think JYT is really good. Like, that guy's actually, like, very solid.
He can play.
I think... Yeah, he's good. I think... you guys... I don't know the Ninja guy, but everyone... Sage, I hear, has been doing good things in Sword Shield. Someone told me.
Nobody that we picked up is bad. The question is, should we have saved the money?
I don't know. I think you're not really gonna, like, any hole that you do have, you can patch up at midseason. That's the thing. Like, yeah, like if IFM and Descending shit the bed, you have Mele in the back. Mele could probably get a few wins, right? Like, I don't know. I think you have just enough money to patch up. Because if you have, honestly, with your team, if you have more than, like, how much money do you have for mids? 6K, right?
Something like that at this point.
Yeah.
That's after buying 7 players, which is absurd.
Yeah, so if you have more than 2 holes on your team with those 6K, like, I'm sure you guys are already fucked.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So with mids as in general, I mean, I guess this is slightly a different topic, but I mean, how much value do mids have now that they fixed it? I mean, do mids matter at this point now that you can't get the big name guy, or is it kind of a crapshoot? Are all the good players, quote quote, gone before that point?
Let me look up who got bought at mids last year, and I'll answer that question.
Sure, that's a fantastic way to do it. Please tell us. I'm going to look for the exact same thing, actually.
It's SPLX midseason auction.
Yeah, I'm going to look for that right now. We're going to talk about, do mids have value?
Oh, fucking Dante got picked up at mids because for some reason he didn't get bought and he went 5-0. He kicked my ass. Like, Jesus, yeah, that was the stupidest thing ever.
Where's the link?
And Dante didn't get bought for some reason. That was retarded. Adam, the UU guy, who's also very good in my opinion, got bought. Mr. 378, Laurel, and Exiline. And Googly and Sig. And Sig, obviously, even though he was Conzern, got some wins. Yeah. And, I think players bought at mids last year might have finished with a positive record. Like, very, very positive.
So does that speak to the argument that the bigs, if they're trying to take the season seriously and not just making a big meme, did they blow the load prematurely? Should they have kept more money in the back?
I mean, You could also argue the quality of players isn't as high this time around. Like, if there's no way Triangles would have got unbought this SPL if he signed up, he would have been maybe the most expensive ADVer.
Yeah, for sure. After winning,
After
winning CALLOUS Invitational, he would have been 50.
Yeah, he would have been like
15
25K.
plus. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, looking at like 16K Posse and 20K Dexa, he would have been like 25K. Yeah. And even like Adam is on your team. Obviously, Exlane didn't get bought, but I don't know, but Mid's players did pretty well last year. So there's definitely players that fall through the cracks that can play, and we'll just have to wait till mid-season and see who that is this year.
Like I said, Mela, Luxskill, and Exiline all come to my mind immediately as players that I'm surprised did not get picked up in the main thing, but I mean, I guess not everybody can. I didn't either. I'm not shitting on those guys. So moving it back to the future, we got about 10 minutes left in the talk. So how do you prevent a situation like this from happening again? Because I mean, we can toy around all day with what the bigs should have done, how the bigs should allocate their money after this situation happened, how we think the bigs will do, and the expectations are not very high, but we'll see what ends up happening. You never know. But basically, how do you prevent this from ever happening in the first place? What tweaks to the rules or the format should there be so this kind of thing simply cannot happen?
So we talked about, obviously, the punishment for Ojama being a deterrent from that end. Maybe there's some way to add an extra deterrent to managers who don't, play it on the safe side and come to the hosts or the commissioner with any information that they have about these things. Maybe if you took the big situation and went, let's say the big or Ojama went to the bigs before the draft and said, I will never play for you. Don't even bother drafting me. And then they draft him anyway. And then the manager or the host went, you don't get your credits back. You knew the information. You gave us these logs that showed you knew the information, and you purchased anyway. So we're going to kind of use this as a deterrent to the managers for them to kind of have the impetus to come forward with any information they may have. Just play it safe so that you don't get penalized your credits on the back end.
Would you agree with going down that road, Marco, or is
that...
Yeah,
100%. You always play it safe here, because if I'm managing next year and someone messages me like blah 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 whatever, like I'm not gonna play for you, I'll probably just I don't know if I'd report them, because that's just like not. I just probably wouldn't bid on them, but I'm sure there are a handful of managers who, if they got that or a handful of people, if they got that message, would just be like, okay, you're fucked. Like, you're getting tour ban for 3 months, a team tournament ban for a year or whatever. And I think they did a good job of setting an example of Ojama, so this doesn't happen in the future. And if it does, then someone's probably just going to get fucked.
Should rules be in place to where managers are obligated to report those kind of comments?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because, I mean, like, there's a personal side to this game. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times beforehand if someone doesn't want to play for you. Like, if someone really does not like you, like...
Sure, it's the same way. It's the same way that I wouldn't buy Tama home. Whether he would outright refuse or not, I don't know. But I can sure as hell tell you that he wouldn't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you wouldn't buy Tama, and there would probably be no messages between you and Tama saying, you're not going to play for me, right? But do you report Tama because you know he's going to be a cancer for you? No, you don't. Like, you just let it be. And I think managers are going to play this by ear in the future.
Jabba, should there be rules in place where managers are obligated at the threat of penalty to report when a player expresses that they would not play for them before the auction?
I don't know. That's tough. Maybe. And just if you almost want to treat it as a situation where the hosts aren't going to just take the one instance of it and ban someone, but if this person has a track record of going to multiple managers, so maybe you just want a rule in place, like just come to us, just tell us, send us a PM let us know, and we'll, almost compile information about anyone that's doing this, numerous times to numerous managers. Uh, I I don't know. I don't know. There's no way, obviously, almost no way to enforce it. Unless the other person comes through and goes, "Look what I told this manager. Did they report it to you?" Which would obviously be a pretty funny situation. So I don't know where I would land on that. Maybe the deterrent just to the player itself. With the lengthy ban that you're going to face if you do this is enough. But if it's a something that you think is still going to be a problem moving forward and going to be a major one, up to the level of this, then yeah, I think you should do that. But if you don't think it's going to be as bad and you think that the Ojama penalty is going to serve as a bit of a deterrent to players, then probably no.
I might be being a bit of a prick, being a bit technical here, but I mean, if the rule is all sign-ups are expected to play for any team that buys them, and then a player refuses to play for just one manager, would play for any of the other 9, technically, by the book, isn't refusing to play for just one manager still breaking the rule?
Yeah, exactly.
Technically, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's a sliding scale of how bad it is. Like if they go to one person, then maybe you give them a slap on the wrist and maybe infract them or do some other stuff. You don't just ban them from the tournament, but once you cross a certain threshold, if this person has a history of it or they've told multiple teams, then you start instituting the tour bans.
I mean, the other slippery slope, right, is when it is. At what point does it become justified? So, like, is there any instance where the player is right? Like, for example, let's say that a player was a teammate with another player, couple SPLs back, and they didn't get along at all. Total blowout, cancering, whatever. And now, 2 years later, that player that he didn't get along with is one of the managers. Like, is there any circumstance where the player goes, I don't think I'm wrong for not playing with this guy. I'll play with anybody else, but like this dude and I did not get along at all. The team environment was awful. Like we were at each other's fucking throats the whole time. Like, am I wrong for saying that I'm not going to play with this dude? Like, is there any situation where you actually side with the player and say, you know what? It is okay for you to refuse to play with this team.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's probably a situation severe enough, but I could see, I could definitely see it happening, like the drama going down and the community and the TDs like signing with a player if there's enough evidence. Because at the end of the day, like it's all about everyone wants to see evidence and logs and whatnot, and like if there are explicit logs of like the manager saying, "Oh, like I never want to team with you again," blah blah blah, like you suck, blah blah blah, just stuff along those lines. I'm sure they'd let it slide, but I think this is just you. Smogon hates to be so marginal with like things like this. They're just looking for an objective ruling, and I think they've got it with the Ojama precedent, which is it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the future.
What about you, Jabba? Is there any scenario in which the player is right in refusing to play with somebody else?
Yeah, I think so. If there's enough history with a manager, and it's going to be extremely volatile, and the player's going to hate doing it. I mean, no one's being paid to do this, so no one should have to play with someone who they absolutely despise. So I think, obviously we've discussed this before. Obviously, we like a bit of flexibility in the rules, and so taking it on a case by case basis, I think something like that you should look at it and go, yeah, that's fair. We shouldn't have to force a player to go through this in a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
Here's another spin on it, because the whole point is that in an ideal objective world, anybody will play with anybody, no matter where you end up, you end up. Is there an instance where TD should block players because they have collaborated to cheat together? For example, should Lavos be allowed to team with Ilodin in SPL? Should Star be allowed to team with Roses in SPL? Like, is there an instance where two players are known to have gotten together to break the rules? And is there any validity to where TDs should step in and say, no, these players are not going to be on the same team?
That's actually a really good question. I feel like if they didn't do something bad enough to like completely ban them from team tournaments, like they could probably get a slide. I don't know. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think that if someone gets caught once doing something with someone, they'd have to be like a real idiot to try it again, first off, and get caught second off.
What do you think, Jabba? Is there any validity to an outside force, a TD or whatever, stepping in and refusing to allow players who have collaborated to cheat to be on the same team?
Maybe it's something that can get added to a subsequent punishment. I mean, if you're seeing a history with two players, like if they serve out a second ban doing the same thing, then I think it should be something that's incorporated to the penalty, not something that, a random TD comes in and goes, no, I'm not going to allow this. So, on their second time around, they get tour banned for another year, and then it's like they can't be on the same team in a tournament for the next 2-3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Can you see the flip side of that too? Can you also see, again, let's use Lavos and Elodin, for example. Is there any argument, is there any justification for Lavos coming back or Elodin coming back and saying, you know what, I'm clean, I've changed, I don't want to be on a team with Lavos because I don't even want the rumor. I don't even want, if I do really well, I don't want the suspicion that Lavos is ghosting me. I don't want there to be, people talking. I'm going to refuse to play with Lavos because I want to wipe my hands clean of this. Is there any validity to that?
I'd say so, but then again, that's just another thing that you just got to like take the manager's words on and hope the cards fall in your favor, man. Because like I could see that happening, but then there's always the chance that Lavos ends up on the same team. In this hypothetical situation, Lavos ends on the same team as Aladdin, and what do we do there? That's just another slippery slope. Well, I don't even want to think about that. How much of a problem that would cause. They'd probably end up both getting fucking tour bans, knowing this site.
What do you think of that, Jabba? Is there any validity to a player who comes back, wants to be clean, saying, you know what, this player that I cheated with in the past, I refuse to play with him because I know how it's going to look?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same vein as, refusing to play with someone because you hate them. It's something you just have to look at on a case-by-case basis, allow the TDs to have a little flexibility and go, that's fair. We shouldn't force this situation when, one of the players involved just doesn't want to do it for legitimate reasons, not just because they want to play with their buddy on another team, but because they sincerely do not want to play with this one specific person.
So we've gone over the hour here, so it's time for final thoughts. I'll let both of you say your piece. Basically, for you, wrapping it all up, how do you define what level of quote price fixing, team fixing, whatever you want to call it, what level of that is allowed, what isn't, and what should happen going forward? I know that's a tough one.
That was a lot of questions at once, my man.
Yeah,
it's a loaded question, but what should the policy be going forward?
I think the TDs did a pretty good job with this situation. I think that it's a very difficult situation to handle, as they mentioned several times, almost in a way of patting themselves on the back, like, look how well we handled this situation. We're great. I think it's a sliding scale. It's hard to pin down. I think this punishment will do a good job deterring a similar situation in the future. I think that it's a hard thing to punish up front. It's easier to punish on the back end when the person goes, no, I'm not going to play after the drafting. I think it's hard to punish before the drafting, and it's very dependent on the words that are used by the player in their discussions with other managers. So I think it's definitely going to be a case-by-case basis. If this kind of thing ever happens again, I think it's very difficult to punish. I think justice, quote unquote, was served with this one, and that's my piece. I think I got all your questions, maybe.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. Marco?
Yeah, I think there also has to be, especially in if a situation like this one ever happens again, they've got to like penalize the managers, like Sabella of like the opposing team cut some way, because this was just like I'm pretty sure at this point Stone probably isn't going to be allowed to manage in future SPLs after this whole debacle, and if Sabella ever signs up to manage or Nails ever signs up to manage, they're probably going to get rejected just based off this. But it does set a really good precedent for what should happen in the future in situations like these. And, this was bound to happen eventually. And sure, I'm a little upset it happened to my team, but what are you going to do?
Fair enough. That about wraps it up. Appreciate you guys listening. Just want to give you guys a couple very quick reminders here. Jabba the Griffin has his own YouTube channel now. Check that out. Link in the description. He could use some subscribers.
It's an amazing channel.
It is an amazing channel. And also, Pokemon Perfect relaunch is up and running, and those tours are available for you guys to sign up. There'll be a link to that as well if you want to check those out. On behalf of myself, Jabba, Marco, and Marco's dad, thanks for listening, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take it easy.